Hi everyone, it's Coach Fred here, and today I'm going to be going over factoring. I know again, but we're going to be looking at a harder pattern today. So this is game time. You need to pay attention, review, remember, recall, and I might even introduce things in a different way that might help you remember how to factor. Okay, but let's go back to that process we go through. We always check to see if there's a GCF first, no matter what. Then we look at how many terms we have. If it's 2 terms, we want to look for dots. If it's 3 terms, no matter what, we want to look for a perfect square trinomial. Then if it's not a perfect square trinomial, we're just going to trinomial factor. Now, we looked at ones where a was equal to 1. So something like x squared plus 5x minus 10. We looked at those in our previous review video. In this review video, I'm going to be going over when a is greater than 1. So these are going to be a little bit more challenging. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you kind of the way I think about this, okay? So first of all, when I'm trying to factor a trinomial, I am trying to factor it into 2 binomials. And so I have to consider, when there's an a, I have to consider the factors of that number. So factors 5 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 1. Now, I don't look at the signs. Some teachers do. I don't. I actually see that I only have one factor for 5, so I go ahead and put them in. Because if I were to multiply these, I would be multiplying 5x times x. And I would be multiplying 2 times 1. So I put the 2 without a sign in. Now here's the different part. I want to think back to the area model. If we had the area model and we multiplied binomials, well then, we know that this first box would be 5x squared, and we know our final box would be -2. So that's true, but what would give me the middle term would be 2 things that I have to add together, okay? So I know that this is going to be 5x and x, and I know there's going to be a 2 and a 1 here, but I somehow need to get these 2 middle boxes to add to +3. So the way I can see that a little clearly is if I multiply these inner terms, okay? If I multiply them, and I actually put these lines in like this, almost like a smiley face, this, if I multiply them, gives me 2x. This gives me 5x. If I add those together, which would I do in that next step, I need them to add to 3x. Well, that would have to make the 2 would have to be negative, the 5 would have to be positive. So my outer term gives me the 5, so I'm going to be positive. The inner term gives me a -2. So think about that now. So I have -2, +1, so that would give me -2x and 5x. So when I add them together, I get 3x minus 2. All right, we're going to do it again. I wanted you to see it here. I'm not going to do the area model every time, but you can if it helps. All right, so I have 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. So I'm going to look at my factors of 2, which are 2 and 1, and my factors of 3, which are 3 and 1. Okay, I'm going to make my 2 binomials, and then I'm going to put in my 2x and x, and then I'm going to put in my smiley face, okay? And I have to figure out where to put the 3 in such a way that when I multiply this and this, I'm going to get 5. So I could put the 3 here and the 1 here, or I could put them in opposite places. You're going to have to test both. All right, so this gives me a 3x. This gives me a 2x. Well, I could make that 5x, except for the fact that one of them has to be negative if they multiply to a -3. So that's actually not correct, even though it really looks correct. So now I have to change the location. So I'm going to put the 1 here and the 3 here. That's going to give me an outer term of 6x, an inner term of 1x. For those to add to -5, the 6 would have to be negative. That would give me -5. So the 6 came from the outer terms, so negative, positive. And again, if you think about this using the area model, you know you have a 2x and an x, and you had a 3 and a 1, okay? It'll kind of help you see that you're adding those 2 terms together to get the inner term, okay? So I just want you to think about it as you're doing it, why that is, why I'm using that little smiley face to help me. All right, this one, they're all positive, so that's actually helpful. So I have my factors of 3 are 3 and 1, and my factors of 3 are 3 and 1, and I need them to add to 10. So actually I'm starting to see that I need the 3 times the 3 somehow, because then I'm going to get closer to 10. So I'm going to start with 3x and x. I'm going to go ahead and get my smiley face in to help me, and I can see that I need to put the 3 over here to give me a 9x and a 1x. And since these are both positive, the pattern is these both have to be positive, because then they would add to 10x. Okay? All right, a little harder. What about, again, we always want to look for a GCF, but what about, kids always say to me, what about if there's multiple factors of the first and the last terms? Well, you have to try them all. And I usually say my goal is, why not try the ones that you're like just most commonly used to seeing? So if this were a 6, then my factors would be 1 and 6 and 3 and 2. I'd probably pick 3 and 2 to start. That's how I go through the trial and error, okay? All right, so I've got 5 and 1 in this case, and I've got 2 and 1. Well, I love this, because this factor pattern, if this is negative and this is positive, so they multiply to a positive but add to a negative, I know that I'm going to need both negative binomials. So that's actually a nice little trick. So I have 5x and x, and I would have minus minus. Okay, so now I just have to figure out where to put the 2 and the 1, and I need 11. I'm going to give you a second to look at that. Those connectors, or that smiley face, help me see that I actually have to put the 2 here and the 1 here, because that outer term would give me 10x, or negative 10x. That inner term would give me negative 1x, which indeed gives me negative 11x. All right, last one, a little bit harder. GCF, don't forget that guy. He gets forgotten all the time and he feels left out, so let's not forget him. So I can see that they all have a common factor of 2, so I'm going to pull him out first. That's leaving me with 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. All right, now I look at my trinomial and see if I can factor it any further. And that gives me factors of 2 and 1, and 3 and 2, and 6 and 1. Okay, so this is one where I have to think about it. So luckily my first term only has one factor. They're both plus, so that means these are both plus. So that kind of helps me. I'm going to get my inner and my outer connectors in, my smiley face, and then I'm going to think about this. Okay, so if I use 3 and 2, which is the one that I'm most commonly used to seeing, if I put the 3 here and the 2 here, I get a 4 on the outside and a 3 on the inside, which gives me 7x. Now, you guys will get really good at this, but it does take practice, and you really have to follow a technique. Now, there are plenty more. There's the AC method, there's the reverse box method, there's the cross method. Every teacher teaches it differently. This is the way I feel comfortable teaching it. If you want me to go through any other way with you, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to make more videos on this. All right, guys, have a great day.